Hello, everyone. How are we all doing? We're here live with two beautiful people. We've got Lloyd over here, who you all know, right? The organizer of the team challenges. And we also got one of the guest judges with us today, Angelo Tsiflas, who you may know from doing one of the workshops for us too, right? Happy to have you both here. And yeah, since it's Lloyd's little baby, I'll just hand it over to Lloyd.
Sweet, cheers. So I'm going to start if Tim brings up the presentation. We're going to start just by doing a quick recap for maybe people who aren't familiar with the team challenge, as we are live on YouTube. So the team challenge, this is a Midway feedback stream. So what are the team challenges for those that you don't know? They are a challenge where we bring together artists who already possess most of the skills to create an environment. We bring them into a team so that they can create that really strong 3D environment for their portfolio. The teams have 5 weeks to produce the environments. There's 1 week of pre-production / planning, and then they have 4 weeks to produce the scene. This stream joins the teams at the halfway point of the production. So the teams have had 2 weeks of production time, and they've got 2 weeks left of the challenge to finish their scenes off. In this challenge, we have we have 5 teams. So we'll try to spend about 15 minutes on each team giving our feedback. It might be a bit more, might be a bit less. So yeah, we'll try and stay on track and not take too long to go through everything. So I suppose let's move on to the first team.
Let's do it. Right, so we got Team 1 here. I just realized that you can't read the full text, but Team 1 is doing an awesome challenge about featuring the epic aftermath castle that has been sieged by a dragon. So they're trying to represent a dragon swooping in and destroying an entire freaking castle. So let's have a look. This is also, it's important to highlight that this is also the stylized team. And this is the only stylized team that we have out of the 5. So they're carrying the banner of stylization high when it comes to this. All right. Yeah. Any initial thoughts? I think we've kind of snooped around in the challenges, and we've already given some feedback apart from Angelo. So maybe some initial thoughts, Angelo?
Yeah, sure. First of all, it looks like a very interesting composition. I don't think I've seen many like damaged cancel scenes on ArtStation, and especially like after an attack from a dragon. So I can definitely see the potential for this scene. Lighting, it's still very early, on a very early stage, so I can't really comment how all of this is gonna develop, but I really love the idea of the fire trail that goes alongside the whole scene. So my main maybe suggestion for using that element as your one of the key leading guides along the scene is maybe make it a bit more curvy, and maybe place the camera a bit lower, tilt it a bit, change the composition, or try to find an interesting angle where that curve makes a nice C curve or an S curve and guides the viewer probably to the gate that is supposedly the one of the main key points of interest. I've seen some of the assets that we've got so far, and they really look very nice in terms of quality and final presentation as far as I've seen some of them, so I can't really comment on how all of them are gonna look. So yeah, the main thing is to just try keeping everything under the same consistency level, because I think I've seen a ballista. It's probably still a blockout, so I don't know how it's gonna develop. But yeah, the gate is looking amazing. Some of the crates, some spikes. The gate is looking very nice. Like so much like sculpted detail and nice texturing as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's gonna be. It looks like it's gonna be a lot of work to get all of the assets to that same standard. So yeah, like keep it up, and it's gonna look amazing. And maybe one last like thought I had, maybe a suggestion. I don't know. What's the overall world building storytelling that you wanna incorporate in that scene? But since you already have some nice silhouette with those castle walls, and there's nothing much happening behind those walls, maybe you could have a nice volumetric point light perhaps, or some fog cards that would imply that some part of the city behind those walls is also burned or attacked. So add some contrast and depth using like some fog cards on the background.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually a good point. Because you can actually do you can kind of reuse some of the stuff that you already have, right? Like the broken
Oh, yeah.
tower, and then maybe just rotate it and maybe scale it slightly, and then put it in the background behind a couple of fog cards, like Angelo was saying, and then you can create like interesting depth without having to necessarily recreate like a whole new tower again, right? It's gonna be fun
Oh,
to play around with once we get like the later stages, I think.
and since it's gonna be a background element, you don't need to have as much of a detail. So just blur it out using depth of field, some fog cards as well, and yeah, you're good to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, awesome. What do you think, Lloyd?
Yeah, obviously agree with everything Angelo's saying. Sort of talking about the fog cards, as we just mentioned it, I was going to mention that the like top bit of the scene is very dark and you can't really see a lot of those details. But I think the suggestion of adding the fog cards would add that little bit of light to the background and allow those dark things to be like a negative contrast against them. So that would actually solve that problem.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen you've taken into account our feedback about adding like a broken pier so it feels a bit more watery. Because I know you were thematically aiming for Sea of Thieves. I think one thing I'd like to see is maybe like bring the water up a little bit because it's a little bit hard to see in most of your shots. So really have it sort of a bit closer to the overall like scene, as it were, in terms of height, because on a couple of the shots it's barely visible. I think that'll help you sell this is meant to be like a fort next to the sea or something a little bit better. But otherwise, like it's looking like way better than it was originally. You've added some nice detail into the like ends of the castle where they sort of break off the island and stuff like that. It's nice to sort of at least get those areas blocked out rather than just a cube as they were before. So that's looking good. And yeah, for the assets, I will just like basically reiterate what Angelo said, which is that the some of them are looking really nice. The ones that are like sort of finished, sort of like melted gate is it's looking really good, and at least for
Mm-hmm.
my only having played CFTs, it feels very on point with that CFT style, and it's got like nice details with like the discoloration of the tips and the little metal puddle and stuff like that. Just those details are like really make it shine. Yeah, that's all I've
Yeah,
got to add.
exactly. Yeah, I love the look and the feel of the assets currently. I think
Yeah.
a lot of it is gonna be brought together by what Angelo said before as well. Like the lighting is gonna do a lot of work here. But yeah, the way that it's currently going, it's a good momentum, good pace. I think there's a lot of potential for reuse in this scene as well, like I said before. And yeah, now that you pointed it out in the beginning as well, Angelo, like the fire trail being on the same directionality as the stone path right next to it, kind of feels weird, right? Because you have those two things like just being straight on almost. So it would be cool to have the fire path like more diagonal or like an S curve or something like that. Totally agree with that. There's one slight thing that I want to say, and I don't know. I think Sean is working on the ship, right? And it's a massive asset. I think what could be interesting, because this ship is supposed to be like flung around by a dragon, right? That's what you're trying to do with this ship. Like it's been picked up from the sea and then tossed into like the tower or something. It would be cool to kind of have an indication there of like dragon claws or something, right? Because now there's no link to the dragon as of yet. Maybe some of the blockout assets are going to be replaced by something that indicates of a dragon, but it might be interesting to think about that element. Yeah. We got some people popping into the chat as well. So Matt Kane is popping in. Very nice blockout team one, looking neat. Would be interested to have some dragon teeth in the boat to break up the silhouette a bit too. And yeah, he's also saying or claws would work too as well. So yeah, I think that could be very interesting. Yeah, but overall, like really impressed with the pace and just the amount of assets and like the reuse that can happen here as well. So
but I think you've got like a really good quality bar, like a quality asset set there with that that gate. If you can nail that across the scene, this is going to look amazing. So yeah.
100%. So we also got a question here in chat. I is asking, is it possible to join the team right now before projects are getting more detailed? I would love to join the stylized team as possible. Lloyd, if you want to answer
that. We have 5 people per team, so we, as a rule, we don't let people join midway through. You have to sign up before it starts. So yeah, the next one will be in a few months' time if you are interested in joining it. But yeah, we wouldn't accept anyone else joining the challenge right now, particularly with the teams at their correct number, right? All the teams have got 5 people at the moment, so sorry.
Awesome. Yeah, but keep an eye out for the next one, because we usually try to keep at least one stylized team in there, you know? I know that stylized is kind of underrepresented, and hopefully we get more people joining stylized teams. So if you're interested,
this is the big shout out for all you stylized people. We would love
to
have one challenge where the stylized outnumber the realism.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Sign-ups will be in about June, I think, as it currently stands. So
yep.
Go spread the word.
Especially to stylized people. Get them in here. Yeah, Nicole is saying, join me.
Very tempting.
Yeah. Okay, so that was Team 1. Congratulations so far, and I think we're all excited to see where this is going to go. So awesome work so far. Let's jump ahead to Team 2. So I'll read the brief description. Team 2 is, because it's all in the same kind of theme, right? We're working with like an Under Siege theme, so they all kind of have to link to the same core idea. After successfully sieging the castle, the attackers have moved on, and what we see is the siege battleground. So this team is kind of representing more the aftermath of the battle itself. So this is the main shot here, so we can actually see like the siege equipment still being left on the battlefield, and you see the battlements that are on fire. So yeah, very interesting opening shot. Maybe let's start with you, Lloyd, this time. Like, what do you want to say about this one?
Yeah, I really love the sort of atmosphere and mood that you're starting to generate here. It's like quite a bit different to how most 3D scenes often go, right? You're almost using like the negative shapes to sort of sell the, I don't know, the presence of these trebuchets and stuff, which is like a really nice touch rather than like directly lighting them. It really just sort of sets this more eerie aftermath feel, right? So I think they're doing really well on that front. Yeah, like the overall the composition I think is quite nice. It's building. It's been a gradual build, as we know. We've been following it, so I think there's still things you're improving as you go. It's sort of you keep adding to it rather than everything's blocked out there ready. So I have faith that it's gonna turn out really nice on that front. Sort of to briefly touch on a couple of the assets. The trees, the dead trees are looking really good. They're nicely detailed and like sort of thick enough that they can be seen, but still got this like really kind of withered and like sort of like unfriendly appeal in their sort of like withery shapes. Yeah, just good job so far.
Yeah, they really seem to fit like a battlefield area, right?
Yeah, just
Kind of go
really
into that
sell
same
that
vibe.
death theme, right? Dead.
Yeah, exactly. I think what we tried to do here is because we got the team sharing a couple of images for us. We also did a little bit of snooping around in the individual chats and tried to extract some more images. So we got some nice looking grass as well. I think Joseph from the team is doing a really good job at making some of the foliage bits, which is really coming together now in the shot. It's going to be interesting to see how you get the same sort of detail level inside of the castle walls and like that the destroyed element on there as well. So I'm looking forward to that. What about you, Angelo? What do you think?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna agree with Lloyd. In terms of the overall mood, they've already started up like with a very solid foundation. I feel like fog is nailed, and the lighting we using those like small fire spots is really working along with very nicely with the scene. I really love those two trebuchets. Trebuchets, yeah.
Mhm.
Being used as foreground elements to kind of sell the scale of the whole scene. And I would even go a bit further and like get the camera closer to one of them, kind of frame the angle and kind of obstruct the composition in one side of the image, perhaps.
Mm.
Uh, just so yeah, you really can sell the scale even more with that. Same with the castle asset. I guess it's still a work in progress, so can't really comment too much on it. I would probably start adding some duplicates of that, some instances on the further side of like on the right side of the image, perhaps. Maybe on the other. I don't know if that's a completely other mountain, super far away. But
Mm.
yeah, I feel like it could definitely benefit with some extra silhouette information over there. Might as well be trees, so doesn't have to be the like castle walls.
Yeah, yeah. Just in terms of
Uh,
composition, you mean, right? To
yeah.
build up, yeah.
Or even if you don't wanna have some information on the right side, maybe on the left side you could add some more trees along those steep cliffs, just
Mhm.
to give it a bit more interest. I really like that already there is some nice curve and some very nice negative space on the top right side of the image, so it's already working very nicely.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, I'm gonna like say this, repeat after Lloyd that the foliage assets that I see are very nice and very fitting on the scene. Really love the grass and how the terrain grabs those small specular highlights from those couple of fires that we have in the background.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, what else? Oh yeah, I had one idea perhaps since uh, just a storytelling thought because I suppose those trees have all been recently burned, so maybe you could have some, or not some, like many broken tree branches on the floor just to populate it with some more elements.
Yeah. Or you could even do like a material variation, right? Where you have like burned wood on the trees as well, so that you
Oh
indicate
yeah,
that
yeah,
they're like recently burned. That would be awesome as well.
yeah. I
Um,
think for that to work a bit better, probably you need some more light over on the scene. So yeah, not sure if it's gonna
mm,
be worth going to all the trouble if it's not gonna be visible, since it's
yeah,
already a very moody scene.
yeah,
But yeah,
that's
you're
true.
totally right.
Yeah, That's awesome. We got some people in the chat as well. Matt is saying I would boolean some parts out to show the destruction. I think that's a great shout, right? You can easily add some quick destruction to meshes if you just boolean some stuff out. Really quick to do. It doesn't have to be all that accurate yet, but it can really elevate like the current look and feel, and then you can keep building up on it like later down the line, right? Yeah, so that's very good. Eyes of Jack in the chat is agreeing as well. Potentially bash up some of the towers to show that the archers have been fired at. Yeah, exactly. Like you want to see damage on, especially the front wall, right? Like you want to see some sort of damage. That's awesome. To come back to what you were saying, Angelo, I love the idea of having like a trebuchet like closer in the foreground and having it play like a bigger like foreground element where you're almost like, yeah, you're just using it as like negative space, like Lloyd said, right? Like it's just a big shadow in the front, like almost like menacing in its size. Could be very cool.
Yeah, if it were up to me, I would even place the camera right beneath the wooden beams.
Could be very interesting to try, right? I think you can get like a very interesting composition that way.
Yeah, it has some nice diagonal beams, so yeah, maybe that could work.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah, and then also, I'll give like a quick tip on to make more with the stuff that you already have, right? Have broken trebuchets as well. I think you might even have this already planned, but you can just take like a trebuchet that's already there and kind of just adjust the model without necessarily having to adjust the textures because they're so dimly lit anyway that you can kind of get away with like doing significant asset changes. So it could be very interesting there as well.
Was I don't know if it'd work. Just thinking, it might be nice on the closest trebuchet. It might be a bit distracting. Just get a very small like hand torch that they might hold. Something that so it's not so distracting that it pulls your eye away from the rest of the scene, but maybe like just gives a little bit of light to the side of like the details on the trebuchet. But I don't know if you'd be able to balance that. But it might be nice to be able to see like on the closest trebuchet just a little bit of the detail. But it'd be a shame to have all that hard work completely hidden, right? But I don't know if that'd work. That's just a
No, it's a
pie in the sky thought.
tricky thing to balance, but yeah, it can help a lot. And
Yep.
before I forget, like something that's gonna be like I'm gonna repeat a couple of times for the realistic teams. Like it would be I think it's a nice point to start thinking about the final presentation overall, like post-processing. So especially with such a gritty and like war-torn scene that you've got here, maybe it would also fit like a very large like and soft bloom that also has some dirt lens effects, film grain and stuff like that. And yeah, I don't know if you're gonna if the plan is to also have something animated, motion blur, and having a low frame rate on a like subtle camera animation, some panning might be interesting.
Yeah, some very good points. Adam is also saying in the chat, you might want to make the trebuchets larger too, because they look a bit too small in comparison to the walls. So yeah. I've never stood next to a trebuchet, but I imagine them to be quite tall. So might be interesting to check up, like if you got the sizes right. Joseph is here as well. We are taking advantage of the mood to not spend too much time on the details. So yeah, definitely a lifesaver. Yeah, it's a good choice, right? So that you can focus on the bigger picture and get like a very mood driven picture. It's a very good choice. Yeah, be interesting. How are you gonna bring stuff together and like really sell the storytelling, right? Because that's the thing. Like we're supposed to be seeing like a destroyed or like at least partially destroyed thing, right? But it's not there yet. It might be because there's this one guy like in the middle of the entrance still defending the city, so maybe he just stopped like all the trebuchet stuff coming in, you know? You never know. Nah, but jokes aside, good stuff, people. Like especially the foliage and yeah, the ground material. We don't spend too much time talking about the materials, but they really make the scene, like I think it was Angelo that said it, like they give that nice highlight on the floor. Looks really nice. Let's see. So there's a couple of additional comments here before we move on to the next team. So Jack is saying, I did some research into trebuchets, and there's apparently a formula to get the most efficient size for them. Okay. So we're going into like mathematics, which artists are very well known for to be really good at, right? So yeah, the Gianni is saying he did a T pose and all the fighting stopped. Hell yeah. Okay. Awesome job, team. Do you wanna add on anything, Lloyd?
I just want to say, like, all those small details, like all the foliage, all those like specular
Mm.
highlights, are really starting to make it like feel like a proper believable world, right? Which is quite hard to do often in 3D. So those little elements really selling it as believable right now.
100%. Any last words before we move on, Angelo?
Oh, just realized something. Yeah. I don't know if the
Uh-oh.
team has. No. It's like it's something very minor. Don't worry about it. And it's probably like one of the polish tasks, so might not be applicable at the moment. Basically, the terrain and the castle walls blending. So right now, the castle walls just seem like they've placed on top of it. So I mean that makes total sense. But I would like maybe start adding some assets there, even if they're block out. Some rumble from like the broken walls. Maybe some like hide the transition with some foliage, or even like destroy trees over there. So yeah, some food for thought for later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Like rubble is such an easy win, right? Because it helps the storytelling and it also works really well to blend stuff together as well. So yeah. Joseph is saying that they knew. We also thought about like using the rocks for blending as well. So yeah, awesome.
That would work. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Scott is mentioning a comment from Matt as well. A path through the gate would help as well, so that you can. It works great for like just leading the eye, right? Having like paths going into the gate itself could be interesting to look into as well. Thanks so much all for sharing your thoughts in the chat as well. Appreciate it. Let's move on to the next team, which is team 3. And they are kind of taking a different spin, right? So the last two teams were sort of a bit more focused around like the medieval times somewhat. This team kind of spun it on its head and they're looking into the future. So this team is trying to represent an apartment of an elite family in a cyberpunk world. And it has been sieged or it has been robbed recently to retrieve like a valuable asset. So that's what we're looking at in this one. So we got this image here. Yeah, let's switch it up. Angelo, you want to take it away on this one?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah, first of all, I wasn't aware of those. Like, I haven't played Cyberpunk. I think it was the main reference for this scene. So yeah, I really love the nice red like details all around the scene. So I think it's one of those points that the team should capitalize on, because it gives it such a unique aesthetic overall, and I don't think I've seen too many scenes like this. I would be a bit careful, maybe having too many different sources of volumetrics, because I get that we want to sell that the atmosphere is a bit thick, but I think the emphasis and the point of interest that the team would like to have is on the red door, for example, the red holes on the door, which cast some volumetric lighting, but not on the spotlights on the left, for example. So just be careful where your brightest spot in the scene is, because this is where the viewer will naturally like navigate towards, kind of subconsciously. And yeah, the other thing that was a bit distracting when I first saw it is perhaps having too many different competing colors. So, but mostly I'm mostly referring to the like gold/orange light fixture on the top. So if you're going with the red on the one side, maybe just go with something like more bluish for that, because orange is fairly close to the red. So yeah, they might be competing with each other. Yeah, and I think the other like screenshot I've got is from some of the assets. They're looking amazing, so super high detail. And again, as I said with the first team, make sure that like you can actually manage to finish all of those assets, at least the most important ones, to the same like level of standard, level of quality, just so you make the scene look more consistent and yeah, like a quality screenshot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I think I totally agree, especially um with the amount of stuff that's going on, right? I think that's always been the trickiest part at like trying to represent a cyberpunk world, which inherently has like a lot of stuff going on.
Oh yeah.
But you kind of need to be able to like then prioritize what needs to be seen, right? And I think you're absolutely on the money. The team, I gotta say, the team has already made like giant improvements to what we saw last time. They've basically switched up like most of the scene to make it work, and it's already looking way better than it did before. Like we're feeling some structure come in. We got like the room in the back as well, which is actually interestingly like working pretty nice because you got that red element in the back and then
Yeah,
you got that
exactly.
red element in the beginning. And then if you, I think Angelo was kind of going towards this as well, right? If you then simplify like the rest of it, then you get those like nice red tones that stand out compared to everything else, and that's going to have you go through the image just because like red is such an intense color. I think that could be like very interesting to lean on a bit further.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But that's the thing, right? Like with environment art, you have to constantly tweak and turn lights down and then have some more here. Yeah, it's a whole process, right? That's why we iterate so much on it as well.
Yeah, I
Um
think. Sorry,
mhm.
once. I think what I meant to say overall is like prioritize having some like areas of rest in the scene. So right now, for example, some of the ceiling materials are a bit noisy, so my eye navigates towards that instead of perhaps the background room with the red light. So maybe play around with the intensities as you said, and yeah, like really nail the focus points that you want to have in the scene and need that specific shot.
Mhm. What do you think, Lloyd?
Yeah, I'll start with that. I really like the overall style you've chose to go with, right? That it feels very luxury and extravagant with like sort of almost those gold embellishment and details. But I would iterate, just be careful with the amount of materials, like it's just been said, going on. Just yeah, think about how maybe a luxury interior designer would do it, right? They generally pick a couple of main materials, right, and then it's just like just any other art, right? Primary, secondary, tertiary. So you've got like this strong marble and this strong wood. You want to, and obviously the gold plays a big part. You might want to just be careful introducing too many other materials beyond that, unless it's for like drawing your attention. Um, One thing, like I don't know if it's still the plan, but it was talked about like damaging up the place with through decals and stuff like that. I would like to see like maybe a bit more damage on the door, maybe. Not necessarily holes through it, but like for that many holes to be in it, right? It's probably been absolutely hammered with machine guns or something. Um, so yeah, it might be quite nice to get a bit more damage on the door, and then to also to continue with the theme of damage. I think it'd be good if you could get some like temporary, just I don't know, like really rough damage decals in, um, to
Hmm.
like sort of get an idea of how noisy and busy that sort of damage would make the scene, because you're going to have to balance that sort of noisiness with any damage you're bringing in, if that's still the plan,
Hmm.
because they all sort of play into each other, right? You don't want to like finish your scene and then at the end start adding damage, that you want and realize it starts making your scene very noisy and unreadable. So it might be worth getting like a little bit of your damage decals or something to that effect, just to sort of block out where your damage might be.
Yep. I just gave people a peek behind the veil, so I went out of presentation mode and like actually uncropped the image, because I did that for a reason, because they did have damage decals, but like bullet holes on like the sides, right? But I think the point does still stand, even though last week we kind of talked about it, that it would be nice to maybe subdue the damage a little bit. But yeah, it would be interesting, like Lloyd said, like to experiment a little bit more with it and see how far you can push it. Contrary to what we said like a week ago, I feel, but yeah. Because it feels like the bullet holes are maybe like a little bit too subtle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because yeah, it's interesting. Because I think it also ties in. It's not only just like the bullet decals, but it's also, you need to kind of tie it into like the simplicity of the scene, right? I think you can also look at it in terms of contrast. If you have darker bullet holes, maybe putting them on like white marble or something like that might have a better effect rather than on like dark wood. I know this is like very what would you say, like very fundamentally driven, right? But I think that's going to be, that's like I said in the beginning, like that's a challenge of a scene like this, because you basically strip everything down to the foundations. Like, okay, what materials do we use? And we can only use like 2 or 3, you know? Like you don't want to overdo it in the scene. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting how you iterate and try to come to like a good cohesive picture.
Yeah, I think making not circle damage, right? If you're gonna do it, like
mm,
ungamify every bullet holes that like hit the surface perfectly square on, right? Maybe you could play with that in sort of pointing you down the corridor or whatever as well. Because at the moment everything's kind of just like a circle in the wall.
yeah.
Maybe some damage that's like kind of like a streak or something, where it's like gonna hit the side of it and sort of chipped bits out, sort of in a longer shape.
Yeah, exactly.
If
And I think
if you're still going down that route, right? If you're not going down the damage route, yeah, then play around with it differently.
Yep. I think what we can also see, and it's currently very subtle, but I feel like it's going to be very prominent in the scene, is that we have like the bloody footstep decals, right, on like the white flooring. Right. I think those can also become very important if you add them in like a specific way, right, and they kind of lead your eye as well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that kind of goes into like the same kind of thing where you could even look at it from like an art direction point and say like, okay, everything that's red is important to the storytelling, right? And then kind of use that in the same kind of frame as well. But we got some people in the chat here as well, like chiming in. Matt is saying you almost want the contrast between the red and the rest of the scene. Yeah, I agree. I think that would be cool, right? Like just having that contrast. And then Guillaume, who is actually working on this scene, so was actually thinking about switching up the red painting in the back to a blue one to make it pop more in the scene. What do you think about that, guys?
Hmm.
Would say no.
Maybe, I don't know. Like,
I mean, yeah, we would have to see.
it could work. You
Yeah.
obviously have to change the elevator as well. Whatever the elevator and the bit at the back probably need to match. Just the scene feels kind of like coolly lit overall, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah, the shadows are kind of cold, so it might not pop as much as you'd like compared to what you have right now with the red. So that's the concern. But yeah, it would be nice. So yeah, try it out and see what you like more.
Yep.
It might be worth playing with the saturation of the wood, right? Make it less of a red based wood. Maybe you can darken it, take it more towards like a darker brown or something. That might help with the overall orange red contrast that you've got going on. Just tweak
Yep.
the colors of the wood slightly or desaturate it a little bit, something like that.
Yeah, materials are very important in the scene, so yeah. Play around with them. Let's have a look at some other stuff in the chat as well. Matt is saying, watch out for the textile density and the marble too between the roof and the pillars. I honestly think that's an artifact from the stream, so sorry about that. I think the image is not as high resolution as the one that they uploaded, I think. That's my bad. Sorry about that. And Matt is also saying, maybe the light coming from the roof could be removed as it's distracting away from the red rays coming through. What do you think about that, Angelo? Shaking yes?
Yeah, it was my point about the like golden orange light fixture on top. Yeah, that was mostly about it being a bit distracting overall. I wouldn't completely remove it, to be honest, but yeah, the same as the white spotlights on the side. I would just tone them down, just imply that they're still there, but yeah, not cast so much volumetric lighting per se, and focus like the lighting coming from the door, the red light on the background, and some implied window lights that we have like hitting the floor in the foreground.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely like prioritize which your main sources of light are.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it too, right? So that you kind of have a hierarchy of like, okay, this is important, this is secondary, and then this is tertiary if you need it. Yeah, great stuff. So let's have a look in the chat for a couple more comments as well. So Matt is asking if this is a vault too. It could be interesting to have the door blown off on the floor for a little bit of extra detail. So that's interesting. The team actually tried that on the elevator door where they actually had it like more blown open. But now that we have the door in the back, could potentially be interesting. It might be a very heavy door, so maybe having that exploded open or something happened to it. The only issue, or not an issue, but like the only thing that you have to be careful there is that the door doesn't take up all the attention that you basically want to go to the back of the room where like the artifact is, right? So you have to be careful when combining those things. It can definitely be like interesting adjustment to the scene. And then the last comment before we move on, Scott is saying it will sell the bullet holes a lot more when there's things like wood chips and chunks and marble bits all over the floor as well. Yeah, very true. Cause and effect type things. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it, right? Like if you do this, then what happens? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but awesome stuff. It's a very, very interesting spin on the theme, right? Like Under Siege. It's very interesting to see what you guys are doing with it. So, any last comments?
Yeah, because we see behind the scenes, right, and we catch up with the teams. I just want to say, like, this team had a bit of a slow start. They were struggling with like a particular narrative direction, right? So I think you've done a pretty good job to catch back up, and I think you've put in some hard work to basically rearrange your scene, right, and still have it to this standard at this time, right? I think that's worth note. Like a good job. Really working hard to catch back up, sort of thing.
Yeah, keep it up. Looking good.
100%. Keep it up. We're seeing all the hard work that's been put in, so it's not gone unnoticed. Keep it up, guys. Thank you so much. Next up, let's have a look at Team 4. We're going back in time. We're going back to the medieval time style. A medieval village is raided, and then the attackers target a blacksmith's house to capture him and his tools to gain an advantage in battle, and then leaving the rest of the villagers defenseless. So let's have a look at this one. For this one, we actually have a GIF. We're getting kind of spoiled when it comes to it, so the GIF is looking pretty fire. Oh, I can't forgive myself. Thanks for the save, Angelo. Who did we start with last time? I think it was you, right, Angelo? Should we flip it up again?
Shall we start with you, Tim?
Oh, should I start? Yeah,
why
sure.
not?
I'm the least prepared when it comes to feedback, but yeah, let's go. No, I actually love what the team is doing here, especially with building more structure into the scene itself. I think that's what we talked about last time as well. That yeah, I mean, you can't see the images, right? So me just talking about an image is not going to convey that much anyway. But just to say that the scene is coming along nicely and that everything is being massaged into being like a more realistic representation of what you would expect, right? And I love what you're doing with the roof, like how it's starting to feel and how well, you get that 3-dimensionality in there, right? Because that wasn't apparent last time, but now it's getting that structure in there. It's looking really nice. Yeah, and so we got some of the assets in there as well. I think, do we have like a zoomed in shot as well here? Some of the assets are coming together, right? You can make some really cool like zoomed in shots when it comes to this. I just want to point out one thing though. If they're coming at this place for stealing the blacksmith tools, what are they still doing here? But that's, I mean, yeah. I think it's not that big of a deal, right? I think when they come to like a blacksmith, they're more interested in the weapons than just like a random hammer that he uses to make tools anyway. But yeah. Yeah, and then Arekusu in the chat is mentioning that just as a heads up, Team 4 had a last minute update before the stream started, and that's what we're seeing here as well. So this is a scene with a couple of new barrels. We got some new grass. I think we got a new banner as well. So the team is working hard, making some new assets, even as we speak. So great job so far. Yeah, and with that, I'll hand it over to Lloyd.
Yeah, I want to start with a compliment there. It's just like looking really nice with all the fire, right? Sort of being your primary light source, sort of really ties all the bits together. First thing that like kind of caught my eye was like the dome shape that you've got to where like the blacksmith's house is. It's like almost like a perfect dome. It almost feels like once it comes out of the blacksmith's house, it needs to like go the other way, if that makes sense. It needs to kind of like slope that, like water eroding it away, right? It sort of like starts gradually and then will slope more rapidly up towards the blacksmith house rather than gradually sort of sloping down and ending more sharply at the bottom. So it might be just worth sculpting a little bit of the environment just to break up that sort of dome shape a little bit, right? Ground's a bit uneven in general. But yeah, just to reiterate what Tim said, there's like lots of like nice little details everywhere. Like the whole scene, like no matter where you look, has got some sort of detail in it, which is nice. It makes it feel very believable. The real world is very full of detail wherever you look. So like just barrels and like carts and like lampposts and fences just is a real nice touch to make it feel very believable. I think it was what you were talking about, but I'm not sure. It looks like you can see the internal structure of the house that's burning, which is like a really nice touch. I don't know if you can actually see it, but it kind of looks like that. So yeah, that's really nice. And then since last time we've talked, you've like really blocked out the background because it was a bit empty. Last time we were talking in a little catch up, so it's really nice that you've added lots of trees and some mountains, and you've got your windmill sorted and stuff like that. It just sort of like blocks out that background space, so your eye's not drawn to sort of the empty space. It's a lot nicer now.
Yep. Well, before we head on over to Angelo and what he has to say, I want to chime in there. I think when we're talking about the fire, right? I think you can actually add more of it, but like more distant fire as well to add more depth to the scene. that could actually be potentially very interesting, especially around like the windmill, right? It seems like such a interesting position to maybe also add some fire. Not completely like obfuscating the windmill, of course, but yeah, I think it would add some nice depth as well. Like I would almost imagine it as like smoke plumes, like in the back, just
Ooh,
rising up.
yes.
That will add like you can almost imagine that there's a town behind it without having to do the town. It's just like simple smoke plumes. Um, so yeah, that would be cool. But before I add more onto it, I'll hand it over to you, Angelo. What do you have to say about this?
Oh yeah, like as both of you already said, I love how the mood is already there with that scene. We got the cool guy on the background and like some nice warm tones all over the foreground of the shots. Uh, as I think Lloyd mentioned as well, like I love how we have some parts of the house already burning, but not entirely. So yeah, you can imagine how like the fire is within the structure of the building. Yeah, my main like feedback in terms of lighting would be just to be kind of careful with like where you place your most bright scene. I think I mentioned that in for team 1 or 2, I don't remember right now, but um because you have all those nice points of interest all around the scene, especially like the lampposts, some fires on the right, and of course you kind of want to emphasize the burned building in the center of all of this. So yeah, maybe like tone down the emissive intensities of the other fires, just so you can like yeah lean the viewer's eye towards your main piece. But yeah, as you said, Tim, some extra background fires would also be amazing, just to sell the scale of the catastrophe, basically, and yeah, give it a whole another level of depth.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know what the plan is for the last shot that we have, the close up with the anvil. So right now
Mm.
it feels kind of empty. I would just leave it for last, because since we already have a very nice establishing shot with like a wide view and already so much visual information and storytelling in that one, I don't think there's an immediate need to have a very like concentrated close-up scene, unless the team has the extra bandwidth to just have like a prop showcase kind of a scene. But yeah,
Yeah.
I would really love to see some definitely some more props in there and explain the whole like storytelling part of that shot. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
looking amazing,
That's.
and the fire animation and the particles are looking great. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how that progresses.
Mhm. Yeah,
Oh,
it's actually interesting. Oh, go ahead, Angelo.
yeah. One minor thing I noticed 5 minutes ago. With the last, I think that's the latest like screenshot that we have with where we get the grass as well. I
Mm-hmm.
think their orientation is aligned with the terrain. So yeah, some of those grass patches are looking like kind of tilted in a way. So I would be careful with that. Probably would be better off having them straight facing upwards. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's a super minor thing, maybe for later when the team is on the polishing state.
Yeah, awesome. I do want to add like a little bit of more stuff to especially the blacksmith area, right? Um, I think it's actually worth investing a little bit more time, and also what the team is saying in the chat as well, that they're currently planning on filling up the anvil area, but it's not a focus. I think what could be a focus there is making a furnace, right? Something that's very iconic and will immediately give away that this is like a blacksmith. Or doing something more with the anvil that is currently there. Because I feel like you have to really look to figure out that this is like a blacksmith house if you're taking the far away shot. Something as big as a furnace that is relatively simple to do could actually be like a huge giveaway and really help support the storytelling that you're trying to set up for a piece like this. So that might be might be interesting to maybe move that in terms of priorities when it comes to that. If, of course, like Angelo was saying, if there's the bandwidth, right? But yeah, that's the last thing that I want to point out. Let's have a look at some other stuff in the chat as well, what the people are saying. Matt is saying a path up to the house would be nice as well. Yeah, I think that's a great shout. Just indicating it with like a little bit of dirt that you already have, and then removing the grass from it. Very simple to do. Great shout. Then Matt is also saying that the grass on the slope is a bit small and not too dense enough. Yeah, that could be something that the team can look at. It's always a very interesting thing balancing the look versus the performance in a scene, right? Especially when it comes to grass. So that might be interesting to have a look at.
Oh yeah, I see those fire point lights casting shadows to those grass patches, so might need to be extra careful with those in terms of performance.
Yeah, because if you add too much, like the scene can become pretty slow. Yeah, but that's a good point though.
4090 job done.
Well, like a 4090 in SLI, just grab two, just one specifically for rendering grass. Yeah, do you want to add something, Lloyd?
I just wanted to say I actually was looking at the GIF, right, originally, but the shot underneath, which is the updated shot, right, it actually kind of addressed what I was talking about with the slope of the hill, right? It's much more gradual and kind of like flattened out.
Yeah.
So maybe the GIF wasn't.
I think it might also be the material on the landscape that was in the GIF, like pulling extra attention to it too, right? Because in that one it's really noticeable, and I think the team kind of fixed up and tweaked the material so that it doesn't look that in your face. So that's a good job.
Should look at all images before making my idiotic comments.
It's all good. So Jack is saying, are there any tools and armor racks on the walls? That would be interesting, because I think what you can do with a kit like this, because you have wood anyway, right? You can kind of repurpose the wood and making like some really simple like racks. And because the storytelling actually says that this place got raided and like the tools and the weapons all got stolen, you don't need to model the weapons, right? So you get the best of both worlds. You just need to make some empty racks, support the storytelling. That's a great shout. Yeah, I think overall, awesome looking scene. I love the vibe that the team is going for. We had a quick look at the Miro board as well, and I love that the focal image, right? Like what the team used as their own concept was literally just like the one image. And in the beginning, I was like, I don't know about this. But honestly, I think that the team is kind of nailing the mood and the vibes that they wanted to set. And they're just going 100% forward to it. So I love it.
And definitely giving it their own spin. So that's very important. They're not just recreating what they see. So yeah, that's amazing.
Exactly.
Coming along really nicely.
Yep. Awesome. Antonio, just before we move on, Antonio from the team is saying we'll be putting it along the furnace, and that is in respect to the chimney that Gav was talking about. And they're thanking us for the feedback as well. Happy to be here and happy to help, guys. Like, it's all your hard work anyway, so we're just doing the easy part, you know? Keep up the awesome work. And Matt is also saying, loving this so far. Awesome. And then moving on to the last team, which is Team 5, and they're doing a small city which is being besieged, and Knights of the City have actually set up a blockade to stop the advancement of the enemy troops as well. So let's have a look at this scene. Got some latest images here as well. And just before this is the last team, and we've got the guest here as well, right? So I'll just hand it over to Angelo. I'll do you the honors.
Was not ready for this. So yeah, like I really love the mood that they already have. Again, as many of the teams that we've seen so far. I think my favorite shot would be the last one because it has such nice combination of those orange, red, amber colors, and also uses a very nice like the rule of thirds in a very nice way. So we have the fire and the point of like being the main point of interest on the bottom right, and then also having the lit window on the other side. And gotta say, I love the heat distortion effect that they already got there. So it's like, yeah, chef's kiss. Same with the second shot. They're utilizing the rule of thirds very nicely, focusing on those sword assets in the front and having them slightly blurred out using depth of field gives the whole scene a nice depth overall, because we realize as viewers that we want to focus on the background for that shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So in terms of feedback, that's a tricky one because I can see some assets look almost finished, let's say, and some other parts of the scene look almost on a blockout stage. So I would like try to ramp up those ones and like get everything to like the same level, kinda in a way, especially on the second shot. Some of the walls in the background feel just kinda plain with no damage, no extra windows or extra facade decorations. So that's something I would focus on. In terms of lighting, I really love how those window lights are working right now, but I would maybe try like testing, increasing the fog intensity and specifically their fog contribution. So, and like lighting in the overall scene. So maybe kind of have them influence the whole lighting of the scene a bit more, because right now we get the fire, but we don't see it influencing the scene as a whole. So maybe those windows could play that role a bit more, like, yeah, strongly.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
Yeah, and one last thought in terms of the first shot that we've got. I really love like the definition of the like floor material, ground material. I think like I see some like assets thrown here and there, so I suppose that the team is gonna add some more debris and rubble as time goes on. But yeah, mainly like the main thing that I would kind of want to tweak is that harsh shadow, I suppose, from a directional light. But I also suppose it's a moon, like is that the light is cast by the moon, so I would maybe expect it to be a bit softer, so don't have such a harsh transition with that direction light shadow. I don't know if you're using lumen or like ray trace shadows, so yeah.
I think it's all lumen. I don't think it's
okay.
It's any
Yeah, so
ray
you might be a
tracing that's
bit limited
happening
on how soft your shadow can be there. So yeah, I get I feel the pain.
here. Yeah, so
There's a
Matt is
light
chiming in
line.
as well. Yeah, exactly. Matt is chiming in as well. The directional light for the moon, and they're using lumen. Just chiming in there.
Nice.
And they is also saying that the fire is not ours. This is something that we didn't really discuss before the stream as well. Like, we made a last minute adjustment where we allow people to use VFX packs as well. So what we saw in the previous scene was, I think, also a VFX pack, if I'm not mistaken. Even though that team was actually trying to make their own VFX until we changed the ruling. Yeah, just as an additional FYI. Then in terms of the feedback, I actually think in terms of lighting and in terms of mood, like we've taken a little bit of a step back compared to what we saw last time. And that's also because it might also be like a natural thing, right? Because it's duration. And now I think before most of it was faked, and now you're making the transition from your lighting that's actually trying to become a little bit more physicalized in the world. So in that transition, like you lose certain things too. But I feel like what I'm missing from last time is that the contrast between the blues and the reds was like way more defined, and it was way more contrasty in the entire scene. But that being said, I do have to agree with Angelo. Like the light in the windows is actually really cool. If you can maybe like elevate that up somehow. And it actually made me think that you could maybe even, don't know how far you want to go with this, right? But I'm thinking about a way where you could almost imagine that one of the building's interiors is on fire and kind of use that as like a dynamic light that kind of has like a little bit of a flicker to it, you know? To make it like a little bit more alive, especially the one that's like near the barricade in the second shot. Might be an interesting thing to do there, but I'll leave that up to the team. But yeah, that would be some of the stuff that I would say. What about you, Lloyd?
Yeah, I'll continue from where you were. Like the sort of like quite harsh contrast between the light half of the street and the dark half of the street is kind of like drawing my eye to the ground, which at the moment feels quite empty. I don't know if you plan to add a lot more, but with the like sort of like current harshness and your eyes being drawn to the ground, it really sort of like pulls the attention away from where all the detail is at the moment. Which the walls are actually, if you look at them, are looking really nice, and stuff like that. So I think also the specular values on the floor are like playing into that a little bit. They look nice in the darker areas, right? But in the light, it kind of bounces off a lot of light back at you, so it's quite drawing your eye. I think we touched on it, but is the fog in this level? Because it feels like there's it's missing any sort of fog.
It feels like there
Like
might be a slight distant fog, right? But it's very
yeah,
very subtle.
very subtle. It might be worth just increasing that a little bit, and maybe you'll get some like just very subtle, nice volumetrics coming out of the windows, which will just add a lot to the sort of the points you've highlighted, right? Including like even the swords, which I assume are going to have a lantern or something next to them. What else did I put? Oh, yeah, it's nice to see the blockade destroyed, because for a long time we've had a full blockade, right? And I think you've done a really nice job on the destroying the blockade and actually making like the focal point as well. It's a
Yeah,
really nice little touch.
totally.
Yeah, I haven't got a ton more to add apart from new materials that are like the wood one where the swords, the wood's looking nice. The wool materials, when you sort of look at them, are looking nice, right?
Yeah, I love the bricks. They're looking really nice.
Yeah, I think because the ground takes up so much area, I think we need to fill it up with stuff or make a little bit of variation in the materials on the ground because it's just like this really wide, kind of mud-looking path at the moment. Be nice if there's a bit of material. I don't know, however you say, hay or stone or cobbles or whatever the other material is, right? Just to break up that one solid mud material.
Yeah, I think that's super simple to do, right? If you just change the roughness of the mud and maybe change the material just a little bit, then you got like sand, right? Where you can blend the two with like vertex paint.
They've
But
probably got all this in the works, right?
yeah, they're chiming in into the chat as well. So Matt is saying we were going to add some cobble to the floor as well. So they're looking into getting some cobble, and I think that could be nice. I think we even discussed it last time, right? Where if you have that cobble that is like sort of halfly sinking into the mud, it could actually create like a really nice contrast between the two. Yeah, that could be looking really nice.
Yeah.
Scott
Yeah,
is also saying, "Oh, sorry,
sorry.
Lloyd."
I was going to say we keep forgetting, right? We're giving them critique. We're going to give it the same way anyway. But like in your mind, you keep forgetting this is just 2 weeks worth of work, right? Which is like impressive that they've done all this in just 2
definitely.
weeks.
Yeah, it's freaking nuts. That's what it is. Like the speed and like the consistency and like the amount of stuff that goes into it. And not to forget that this is also like teams of 5, right? Where they're constantly talking and constantly discussing a lot of stuff like that as well, which adds like another layer of complexity to the whole thing. Really impressive. Just impressive where this is already at right now. So yeah, I feel like. Go ahead, Lloyd.
I was going to say, and everything but the visual effects is made by them, right? All the materials. So
Yeah.
the fact there's like plaster, brick, stone, wood, like there's like 4 or 5 materials that are to a high quality, and all of those are there in just 2 weeks, right? You could spend several days or week on like one good material, right? So the fact they've got like 4 or 5 of them in there already is
Yeah.
great.
And I'm sure I have done that in the past multiple times. So yeah. And this is not only for like this team, right? This is just like a general shout out to everyone. Like all the stuff that we've seen today from all the teams. Freaking amazing job, everyone. Every time that we do the team challenge, I'm just so impressed by like the teams coming together, working on something together. And also there's another thing that we kind of keep forgetting to highlight is that some people are less comfortable with doing certain areas, and then you see other team members like helping them out as well. So this is not like a team of professionals that quote unquote know what they're doing, right? Even though professionals half the time don't even know that, but that's a trade secret. We'll keep that for
No
ourselves.
comment.
But no, just to highlight that there's like a lot of collaboration, a lot of helping out, and like a lot of communication and all that stuff going on. Like it's freaking amazing to everyone here. Like it's inspiring to see this, honestly.
Yeah.
Don't spill the secrets, says Matt. Oh, sorry, it's out of the bag now. It's live. Yeah, awesome work. Are there any like final things that we just want to say, like from either of you before we kind of round this one off?
No, not really. I really like the fact you've got like the swords, right? Just as a little detail, right? Maybe it's a bit the point light floating above it at the moment is a bit too extreme, but like there's just this of the detail, right? In a shot that isn't just the environment is kind of nice.
For me, would be I don't know. I don't think we mentioned that for this team. Like some like damaged dirt decals. So, for example, for the second shot, where we got those swords and that very clean, those very clean stones on the side. Maybe those could be a bit more like dirty. Same with the like the first shot where we have that very specular ground floor. Maybe you could break that down with some decals and reduce the specular highlights there through that way if you want. So yeah. I know it might be too soon for the team to jump on that because it's usually one of the last things you worry about. But yeah, something to keep in mind.
No. Matt is saying in the chat that they will do a damage like a decal pass soon.
Oh,
so
nice.
we're expecting next week, right?
Nice,
Right, Matt?
Nice.
No
I
pressure.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
I like the hopefully. Like the
Yeah,
hopefully
yeah.
should be a little like things. Yeah, it's like
Okay, awesome.
Oh, just popped in my head. Wood planks in the floor, if not cobbles, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
You've got really nice wood. Like if you don't want to make cobbles, right, you could like have a wooden beam walkway type thing.
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
And they already have some wooden like beams created. So
Yeah.
just reuse those.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what I love about like making something medieval, right? Everything is so reusable. You have stuff lying around anyway, so you can just I don't know, chuck a couple of planks and beams on the floor and you're good.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, great work everyone. I think that's everything that we had to show for today. Congratulations to like the 5 teams as well. Freaking amazing work. It's always so inspiring to see this stuff. Like I said before. Yeah, awesome work everyone. Great job. And yeah, before we head out, I also just want to say thank you, Angelo, for being a judge and being here, and also lending your valuable feedback as well. Really appreciate that too.
Oh no, the honor is mine. Honestly, I remember joining one of the first team challenges, and I had such a great time. And honestly, if time allows it next time, I would also love to join you as not as a judge, but yeah, like as a team member, maybe on the stylized team. We'll see.
You
Oh, that would be
first.
Yeah,
awesome.
like
Angelo next team challenge confirmed.
like those team challenges are such an amazing opportunity to like also work as a team, grow as an artist, and like get structured feedback and apply it on a very fast pace, and like really
Yeah.
forces you to work with a team. And yeah, it's
And also, don't
amazing.
forget to get demotivated by using source control as well. Don't forget about that.
Oh,
No one knows source control pain like the original members with Git.
That is
no,
true.
no, yeah.
Gotta say, the source control that we have now works beautifully. Like, oh my god, the horrors. Let's not get into that though.
Yeah.
No, thank you again so much, Angelo, for being here, and obviously, thanks so much for organizing this stuff, Lloyd. Like without you, this wouldn't be here, right? I'm not even joking, right? Like this is your idea, your baby. So thank you so much for organizing this stuff as well.
You're welcome, I suppose.
Yeah, nice.
I enjoy
That's
doing
good.
it.
Yeah,
Happy
awesome.
to do it.
Yeah, and I wanna give a shout out to everyone here in the chat as well. Like probably most of them are like members of the teams, right? So keep up the good work, keep up the pace. If there's anything that you need from us, feel free to let us know. We're available. Just chat to us as well. And what are the next steps, Lloyd? Like what can they expect?
For the teams, we kind of broke it down, but like over the sort of next week, they're going to be rounding up all their assets, ideally, really finishing off like 95% of all their work, hopefully, which will leave the sort of like last week mainly down to like really polishing those assets, adding those details, polishing the lighting and environments and all those sort of like polished tasks, right? You really want to just try and keep your last week to those, and hopefully that give all the teams some time to render out the stuff and all that sort of stuff over the last week. But next week is the big push to try and get almost everything finished, right? And don't be afraid to cut things. I should point out, right? If you need to like rescope a little bit in some cases, right? If you're struggling to get all the big assets done, right? Find a clever way of rejigging your scene a little bit to make sure you can still hit that quality, because that's a big thing we've been trying to push, is to make sure that like on some of the challenges we sacrifice quality for like, oh, it looks really impressive from like a long distance away, but when you're sort of talking to companies, you can't really say, look how good I did this, because you didn't do it good because you were rushing. So yeah, make sure you keep that quality high. Yeah, fix it in post.
Angelo. Fix it in post. Okay.
No. Just fix in lighting. Right?
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, post-processing really plays a huge role in the final presentation, and that it can really get that, like, an 80% scene up to that 100%. So yeah, don't forget your, yeah, that will be my last overall point of feedback.
Yeah.
Like, don't forget your depth of field cinematic cameras, rendering with, like, a sequencer if you're using Unreal, probably all teams. Like, use higher settings. Like treat the overall composition with vignette, film grain, and all of that like good stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Make it pop, basically.
I think we've iterated this early on, right? If you haven't already got your final shot established, get it established with all those things Angelo just talked about. It really will help you focus on what you need to put the time and effort into. Yeah.
100%. Thank you so much, guys. And thanks everyone for being here. And also just a shout out to everyone who supported us as well, like on our Patreon and has been a member of the community. This wouldn't be here without you. And like that's not a hyperbolic thing to say, like that's literally what it is, right? So yeah, thanks everyone for being here. Keep up the great work, and then we'll see you in a week for some more feedback. Okay? And thanks again, Angelo, for being here too.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Will it be the first or the second? Will be the final stream, which we'll do similar to this, right? But we'll have all 3 judges, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
And you won't see our ugly faces, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be exciting. All right, people. Thank you so much. I wish you all a pleasant evening, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.